Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here. Normally I don't show this part of the process. What I do before I start building anything is I usually do a quick sketch, some rough dimensions, kind of get a feel for where things are. And then what I'll do is I will mark up a piece of acrylic here, in this case, set a little square in to show where the back's going to be, try to get a feel for the shapes and sizes of things before I start doing any kind of cutting. And then what I'll do is I will write down all the pieces I need and compensate for any kind of thicknesses and whatnot for what cutting I need to do. And then I'll get to this part, which is the actual cutting. So welcome to Tank Building 101. This is going to be part 2. And as you can tell in this case, I am going to be building an acrylic tank. And one of the most important things I find in building an acrylic tank is to make sure all the pieces are exactly the size that they need to be. Small amounts of variation are harder to compensate for in an acrylic tank than they are in a glass tank. If a piece of glass is slightly out, I'm not talking like a lot, but like within a 1/16 of an inch, it's not a big deal. Just fill it with silicone. And in acrylic, you can't do that. So what I'm doing right there is each time you cut on a saw, sometimes the edge, the very corner, can get a bit of a nick out of it, and I want the ones with the best squareness to be on the bottom, and that way I have the best chance of it for holding water. And the other difference you might notice right at this point is this is the bottom of the tank, and it is actually going to be on the bottom. In glass tanks I always float them up a bit, but with an acrylic tank it just gives me one more, well actually 4 more edges that have to be precise. So now the bottom, if it is out by a little bit in any of the dimensions, it'll just overhang, and I can route that off afterwards if necessary. So now I only have 2 pieces that are going to be on inside corners, and those ones are the ones that have to be as precise as possible. And as far as gluing goes, it's the same as all the other gluing jobs I've done. There's no difference here except one detail. I don't have to go all the way through it once. That's not the detail. What I need to do is hold it in place for longer. I usually let it cure and put a bit of pressure on it when I'm doing the curing process. I was just using that piece to make sure the first one went down as square as possible. It is a bit flexible for the first while, but I don't really like to move that joint around if at all possible. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to put the second one on. And this is where it starts getting important to make sure your gluing is accurate. That corner down there, the one where my left hand is, you have to make sure that it's tight as possible. So like I said, what I do here is I glue it, and then I hold it still, and I hold it still a lot longer than I would like if I were building a filter or whatnot. I mean, there's not a lot of pressure here, but there's enough that I want to make sure that it's not going to have a little teeny channel in it, be having a drip or whatnot. So there you go, the first joint's done, and then this is just a rinse and repeat process. I'm going to do the other 2 sheets, and as you can tell, there's only 2 pieces, this one and the other one on the other side, that are going to be on the inside, like 2 inside joints. That's what I'm trying to say, and those are the ones that are the most critical. So this brings me to the reason why I'm making this. Alright, well obviously I needed to build a tank for the video, but also what happened this week, actually at the end of last week, was a client of mine, one I've had for a very long time, his daughter, happens to be about the same age as my daughter, is out at university and ended up with a betta. And she asked him to get me to see if I had a used tank I could give to her for keeping the betta in. And like I said, I've known them forever. Some clients are just clients. Some clients, like in this particular case, they become friends. You've known them forever. I mean, I've known her all her life. So I decided what to do, instead of just building this tank for the video, is I would kind of like build a betta penthouse kind of thing. So once I'm done the build here and the tank's all ready to go, I'm going to try and set up a filtration system with some plants and something more interesting to look at, and also something that is going to be relatively maintenance free for her. So she won't end up getting tired of all this and end up with a dead bed of that sort of stuff. So there you go, tank's done. And that's as easy it is to build an acrylic tank, as long as they're small. If you remember from last week, I ended up had to buy this kit so I can get 2 1/8 inch drill bits. I said, I got all these different sizes. Maybe one will be the right size for that pump. But no. So I'm going to have to build a connector bushing. You've seen me make those before. I put this little part in here to show you my critical measuring to make sure that everything's exactly where I need it. In other words, I'm just eyeballing it, just make sure the pump fits underneath where it needs to go. So this is the bushing I made. It's going to fit through that hole, and what's going to happen is this is going to fit in the back of the tank, and it's going to suspend the pump up so that it supplies water to all the plants and the filtration and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to be in the back, and this is going to be what it's going to hang off of. Now, I didn't want to make this out of clear because I want it to be as inobtrusive as possible, so I'm going to make this out of black acrylic, and I included this to show you that it doesn't matter what type of acrylic you're making your tank out of. You can make just the front panel clear and the rest out of solid colors if you like. They all glue together just as easily. It doesn't make any difference at all. And the other thing I want to show you is here, because I'm using, this is 1/8 I had as not offcut, but it was a bit of, I redid a project once, so I ended up with these extra pieces, and so I decided to use them up this time, and I'm making a box like this, but I wanted to make it a little bit more rigid, so I put a 1/4 inch bottom on it, that's all. And that's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole, and I'm going to put a little bit of a notch there for overflow. This is my plan anyway at the beginning, but the pump I didn't go out and buy a new pump for this. It turned out to be a little stronger than I was expecting, even when it was cut down as far as possible, and I didn't want to put another restriction valve on it, so I ended up having to cut a few more holes. So this is going to be the bracket that's going to suspend this above the bottom of the tank, and you'll notice that I'm not gluing it all the way on here at this point. It's very important not to, because if you squeeze enough methylene chloride at this point to glue that fully here, it's going to run down the side of the box, and it's just going to ruin everything. That's another thing to keep in mind when you're doing methylene chloride gluing. Keep things horizontal until the glue evaporates. Otherwise, you're going to end up with streaks down everything, and it's going to look really ugly. So there you go. That's the box in place. Nice and pristine with the one hole. That's all going to change shortly as I have tested it out now, and I need to put this little bracket in there because the pump shot water up so much it just kept knocking the lava rock out of the way, and it was splashing too much, so that's going to deflect the water. And then I built this little I wanted to put a spider plant in here, and if I put the spider plant directly into the planter, it's just going to drown, so I needed to put a little box in there. Normally what I did for the planter I have in the system is I use a clay pot, but it was a little tacky, so I decided I'd build this, and it'll blend in a lot better. So what I'm going to do is transfer that plant in, and to keep with the theme, I'm just going to use black gravel just to so it just blends in properly. So I'm going to plant that. This small spider plant has grown so much since I hooked it into the planter in the system. I mean, those are a lot of roots. But the nice thing about it is I can just tear a piece off here, plant it in the soil, and put it in the planter, and then replant that other one and stick it back in the system. And I can just keep pulling plants off of this for as long as I need these things, which is kind of a neat idea. And I'm glad it worked out so well. So here we are. I've jumped ahead a little bit. I don't want this video to get too long for you guys. If you remember from the underground filter I did with the pothos planter, the one that I was going to use to start pothos, this is one of those, and as you can see, it's grown some really nice roots, and it's going to fit in the back here. I'm going to put their lava rock on top of it, and hopefully that'll grow quite nicely, though I don't think I've ever had pothos not grow well, so I think it's going to look really quite nice in about 2, 3, 4 weeks, especially if it gets put in the window. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to do much in the way of updates for this tank. I'm going to try and get her to send me a picture or something of it in a little while, just to, maybe I can include that in the video. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do videos for it. So anyway, I think it looks quite nice. I've put a few more plants in it now, and as it grows up, I think it's going to look really quite nice. And I wanted to put a few more in there, but it's just too early for it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.